we'll speak about the dark flowering and how come it's still actually an important thing to clear, to realign, and how it's also affecting not just our energetic bodies, but how it's actually putting us into that victim-victimizer game, and how it's influencing our emotional and mental body patterns, and how it's actually influencing the entire world, right? We'll speak about how it's being spread, how this dark flowering effect actually works, how it's affecting everyone's behaviors, different patterns of behavior. How come the dark flowering is related to the black goo? And why do we just see it everywhere in the horror movies? What's the deal with that black goo? Why is it actually brought to the collective consciousness, to our awareness? I think it's worth looking into that as well. We'll also speak about how to manage that and how come it's actually related to the elementals, the distortions in the elemental kingdom, because actually that's what the dark flower is kind of related to as well. And we are going to speak about the victim-victimizer game, how this whole VV game is used against us to also spread the dark flowering affliction, and how many people on the planet actually struggle with the dark flowering. Because if we look at it this way, everyone has a certain level of the dark flower. The difference is that everyone is having a dark flower, but not everybody has an affliction. So we'll speak a little bit about the numbers, about the average level of the dark flowering, and how do we actually manage to go below the average. I will also explain how that's actually related to the infiltrations and possessions, because what has been coming up lately is a lot of attachments on the plasma body level. So these are not just the attachments that you just remove from your light body and they are gone. This is a different type of beings, the plasma beings, and not all of the plasma beings are good. That's worth remembering. And that actually also relates to the Alhumbras, where there are a lot of good Alhumbras, but certain fallen collectives that are using the reversed plasma currents, they are actually some of the fallen Alhumbras. So that's also good to remember. But I'm going to elaborate on that, so don't make any conclusions right now. And we'll also see how that's actually all related, this thing with this dark flowering, and there is, by the way, also the bright flowering. Just like on my background, this flower is just really bright and shiny, so we can also reverse the dark flowering, and once we reverse the dark flowering, we can actually start the light flowering process in our plasma body anatomy. So this is the good news. So we'll see how that is actually related to this split and to the spirals. And well, I just think that we are going to have an interesting time today. Before I start, I just would like to remind everybody that is watching us, to all of the listeners who are watching us on Rumble or on the PFP. If you are listening on Rumble, go ahead and like this video so that it reaches the larger audience. Click the follow button, and if you feel like, also feel free to donate so this platform can keep going, and so that all of the wonderful people, all of the beautiful souls that are here with us on this platform, all of the hosts who are sharing their truths, so that they can keep sharing their truth on media that are not under the control. So, having said all of that, I guess we can start. And I didn't even prepare these questions in order, so I'm just gonna go through that list that I have written down. So, first, for those who have never heard about the dark flowering and they are thinking what is she talking about? do I even have flowers in my anatomy? Well, yes, you do. You have them on the level of the plasma body. This is called the lotus anatomy. So when you're having chakras on the light body level, on the plasma body level, you are having lotuses as chakras. And it's worth mentioning that these lotuses, they are just like the chakras, actually. They are in front of your body, on the front side, but they are also on the back and on the sides. So something that people often forget about, even if they pretty much are aware of what the dark flowering is, and they try to clear it. And I was doing the same for a very long time. Well, you just only look at the front, but what about the back of the chakras, and what about the sides? These ones can be very, very dirty, because just like people feel a lot of energies going through the front of their chakras, they very often feel nothing on the back. And that is coming from the fact that these lotuses on the back are not breathing. So you can have light flowering on the front of your chakras, but on the back there could be like some really nasty dark flowering stuff. So this is something to remember about, and I'm gonna get back to it when it comes to clearing that, but just want you to keep that in mind if you're already kind of into this topic. So what is the dark flowering on the first place, and when does it become an affliction? Because it's not, if you're having, as I said, everyone is having a certain level of dark flowering, but it's not an affliction straight away. So let me start the reading. The dark flower distortions represent reversals in the lotus anatomy of the internal creation plasma body. The dark flowering affliction started spreading in 2009 during the event called the Norway Spiral. That's when a direct portal called the Dark River Passage has been opened between Earth and the Dark Rift. And the Dark Rift is this black hole in the middle of our galaxy. Opening of the Dark River Passage caused the dark flowering to also start spreading to other timelines. So even though it wasn't so much spoken about in the past, the dark flowering, because that's the plasmas are pretty much like of a multi-vector frequency. So like when the plasma frequencies are being sent somewhere, they start to affect all of the vectors. It's not like it's just going into one place, it's going into multiple space-time locations. So what started to happen is that this portal opened in 2009 and it started infecting other timelines, especially Atlantis. Especially Atlantis, that's where this dark flowering literally became an epidemic, and a lot of people suffered from that. So the opening of the Dark River Passage caused the dark flowering to also start spreading to other timelines. If you had issues with the dark flowering affliction in your past lives, you may most likely have an issue in this lifetime as well. So if there's been certain lifetimes where you were doing certain types of black magic, or you've been very much involved with certain energy mechanics, there is a possibility that just like you're carrying certain DNA distortions, like I've been talking about them multiple times, the ancestral lineage, how certain karmic imprints are kind of being passed from one life to the other, they don't disappear because they get saved as tangible energetic imprints in your morphogenetic field structure. And now what happens is that with the plasma body, it's working on exactly the same principle. So for instance, if in the etheric body, which is the layer of the light body, you had some distortions, like somebody hit you with a rock at the back of your head, and then in the next lifetime you're suffering from the pain, which is on the back of your head, exactly where you were hit, that's suggesting that this imprint is still in the etheric body structure. And now the same thing happens with the dark flowering affliction in the plasma body. It's being passed from one lifetime to the other, And even worse, it's actually affecting all of your incarnations. So once you start healing this dark flower affliction from the time of the now, from the present timeline, you're also spreading that healing to other simultaneous versions of yourself, thanks to the fact that the plasma is such a wide spectrum of frequency. Due to the infection of the planetary grids, everyone these days is holding a certain level of the dark flowering. The average level of the dark flower held by an average individual. So what I mean by that is like if we are just having like a regular person who's not really into spiritual stuff, who's not even interested in the light body activations, like just no interest at all, purely in the 3D world. That's kind of like the average that I'm speaking about. The average level of the dark flower of an average individual is about 8% to 15%. That's been increasing over the years. Those that work actively with the Christic plasmas should be able to decrease it to about 2 or 3%. The dark flowering becomes an affliction starting from about 20 up to 30%. And then if it's going higher, it's just getting worse and worse. So these are pretty much the numbers, right? 8% up to 15%, that's like a person that is attached to the AI, not really open to any kind of spiritual stuff, and just kind of in this 3D drama. If you start to work with the energies, you're working with the Christic frequencies, whatever the level was. I mean, if you are on an average level, you will just be able to easily decrease it up to 2 or 3%. That is quite a level. I'm usually carrying like about 1.5% or 2%. That's usually like when I was checking myself like 2 days ago, I think it was like 1.4%. So, well, that's not so bad. Anyways, when it comes to these levels of the dark flowering affliction, so now I'm speaking purely about the affliction. The affliction starts from about 20 to 30%. So according to Iesha Ashayana Din, if this dark flowering goes beyond 30%, it cannot be cleared. So it's like if it's below the 30%, this affliction can be cleared progressively. Of course, you won't clear it within 1 day. If it's between 30% up to 70%, it cannot be cleared, but it can be managed. So you can never fully clear it, but you can put a stop to it, right? But if it's like between 70% and 100%, you become a full fatally consciousness, like a full fallen consciousness. Well, a couple of months ago, I would say that this cannot be cleared. But now, considering the latest experiences that I had, I would say that this can be healed. This is my approach as a healer, where I pretty much don't like to say that something is impossible. I would say that there is a cure for everything and everything can be managed. That is the approach I was taught to have in order to always search for the right solution for everybody. Because without that, well, we could just get super over depressed if we have like 35% of the dark flowering and we just cannot clear it. Yes, we can. Right now, with the eternal crystal river host, we can manage any kind of affliction by starting to heal the plasma body level through using the urea plasma vapor frequencies. So that means that when this dark flowering started, the situation was quite difficult because we didn't even really have an access to the Sun 8 plasmas. They started a couple of years later. that was like a really terrible situation if you had an infiltration back then, and this dark flowering kept growing and growing and growing. But these days, everything can be managed. So this is great news for everybody who feels like they are having some kind of a problem with it. In a moment, I will tell you how to exactly identify that. So just to make that clear, when the host was announced in 2012, it was the internal host, because that means that we had then access to the Sun 8 core plasmas. If somebody doesn't know what that is, I just suggest you to go back to the video where I speak about the eternal suns of creation. That's where I'm explaining what these Sun 8 core frequencies are. But then what started happening lately, especially, I would say that it started around 2020, or more like around 2016, where we started to have an access to the eternal Nomiseed. We actually upgraded to the eternal Crystal River host. And that is pretty much said in the teachings as well, by the way, for those who are like kind of wondering where I'm getting that from. That's also in the teachings, even though I'm pretty much aligning that with the messages that I'm getting myself. So when it comes to the eternal Crystal River host, there's like a lot of possibilities for everybody, no matter whether you're just like a 100% fallen being, you can get yourself out of here. But the path itself might be a little bit more difficult, because you actually need to start fixing yourself from the inner layer, because your core can never be touched. So that means that you have to start working from the core to the inner layer, which is the plasma body, and then you can get to the light body. So that's more of a complicated pathway, but on the other hand, that's a pathway that can actually rescue many souls that would have a lot of trouble if they had all of these infiltrations in their light body and the plasma body. They wouldn't be able to manage it. So this is great news for all of us, actually. And that brings me to kind of explaining one basic difference that we have between the dark flowering and the Metatronic code, because I've been using that Metatronic all the way when I express some reversals. But actually, the Metatronic and the dark flowering is something completely different. Because the dark flowering is again a distortion on the plasma body level. So it affects the lotus anatomy of the plasma structure, and it is an internal reversal. It affects the internal DNA template, causing the reversal of the codes that can bring in the plasmas into your body. So in our DNA template, we have something called the K factor, the Christ factor. And this Christ factor decides how large spectra of the plasma currents we can actually induce into our bodies. So that means that if you're carrying this famous K+8 factor, you can basically process any kind of plasmas through your system. And this K+8 factor is pretty much irreversible. So if you're the carrier of this K+8, you cannot get fully dark flowered. And that is great news, but you can still get a little bit of that dark flower affliction going on through your body. So what happens when you're getting the dark flowering? It's obviously affecting this lotus anatomy, as I said already, but it's also going into these internal structures of the DNA template. And it starts to reverse all of the codes. So that means that instead of bringing the crystic violet plasmas, you are bringing in the reversed violet ray. So I'm just saying that to anybody who's been like, I heard once a client was telling me basically that she's doing this meditation where she's bringing in this violet ray, this violet light into her fields, and then she's creating this torus structure around her fields. If anybody who is listening to this is actually doing this kind of meditation, please don't, because it's really going to dark flower you and reverse your light body as well. The torus field is actually a structure that is totally making you closed, and it's disconnecting you from the source currents. But anyway, so the dark flowering is going right into these inner structures, and it's basically reversing the plasma currents. And then I'm going to explain what is actually the connection with the plasmas and the matter. So you will understand why it's actually so important to have your plasma template cleared out. When it comes to the Metatronic code, and yes, this is coming from Metatron, the fallen angel, who for now prefers to still be in charge of his own universe, and he doesn't want the best for us. So that came from Metatron, the Metatronic code, because Metatron was very much involved in the reversals of the light body that are still taking place. So the Metatronic code is a distortion on the light body level. It affects the DNA template of the light body and its inherent structures, such as chakras, meridians, axiotonal lines, etc. And it is an external reversal. It affects the external DNA template, causing the reversal of the fire letter sequences in the DNA. So it can just twist your codes, it can twist their sequence or their polarities. You can have like too many of the electric codes, too many of the magnetic codes. That's pretty much how it works. You can heal the Metatronic reversal by the use of the plasma body and the Sun 8 Christic plasmas. And you can heal the dark flower affliction through the use of the Nomi rainbow plasmas from the Nomi seed core, or in severe cases through the urea body activation, because the urea body is our core. And how does that actually relate to that famous black goo? So the easiest way to imagine dark flowering is like a really dense substance that resembles black goo. So if we kind of try, for those especially who are quite visual, if you try to see the dark flowering in your structure, it kind of resembles the black goo. It's a substance that does not react to any light current that tries to remove it. It actually sucks it in. So you try to send some kind of white light towards it, the dark flowering will just suck in this light. It has to be the plasma that clears it, and also like a plasma current that is strong enough. There are only very specific types of plasmas that can vaporize the black goo. This black goo substance that we saw in 3D in different conspiracy videos or something that is classified as the dark matter substance is actually the 3D manifestation of the black goo, which is the dark flower reversed gonfol plasma. The dark matter is something different than the black goo. Because just to make that clear, when we speak about this black matter and the dark matter, these are two different things. The dark matter is actually something that is very organic, and the dark matter is not the black goo. The dark matter actually sets the templates for the light body manifestation, and it is also like an interface between the plasma and the external chelontic templates. So just to make that clear, the dark matter body, which is called the Russia body, is something way different than the black goo. The black goo actually has nothing to do with the dark matter. Maybe we can say that it has something to do with the black matter, which is something different than the dark matter. The black matter is pretty much the matter that is pretty much like the base of these very much fallen systems. The black goo substance affects the plasma body first, and then goes directly to the light body and atomic body templates, causing severe multi-layered damage. So if you're having the dark flowering, and then it starts to affect you, like, I don't know, you're having some pains in your chest, and you start to clear that on the light body templates, it might be okay for a few days, but then it's gonna come back because you didn't heal the root cause, which is in the plasma body. For example, some distortions on the lotus of the heart chakra. The dark flowering causes progressive degeneration of the plasma template that manifests directly as the black goo, which is the most reversed type of energy in the entire universe. And it's really problematic because it's like it's self-replicating itself. So for example, if you are aware that you have the black goo in your body and you're trying to take it out, but you leave just a small piece, oh, believe me, it's gonna grow. It's gonna grow really quickly. So it's been a terrible problem to manage that for a while. And now that we have these so-called plasma vapors, we can do that much more easily, because now the plasma vapors are a substance that is light enough to actually vaporize it. Before that, you actually needed to take a lot of time to use certain frequencies that will kind of push it out of your body. Then you would be catching it into a bowl and just sending it to earth core for the transmutation. Now it's less of a pain because actually you can vaporize it. And these beings, like that are very much often shown in this pop culture, these beings made from the black goo, you can find all sorts of this stuff in the horror movies and all over the internet. They are actually a type of a demonic beings, but they are the demonic plasma beings. They are made from the most dense substance in the entire universe, which is the black goo. And the black goo itself, since it's self-replicating itself, it has a certain level of an intelligence, but it's actually a very twisted intelligence, twist of the twist of the twist. And it actually can be manipulated very easily, mainly through the AI. The artificial intelligence can set the instructions for the black goo to keep self-replicating itself in a certain way. And it's affecting directly the plasma templates. So, that brings us to a question: how can I recognize I am struggling with the dark flowering? What is actually the feel of it? Because this black goo, it's really nasty. Like it feels terribly heavy when you have it in your body. If you have this sense, like that's pretty much the first symptom. If you feel like you're terribly heavy, like your body is terribly heavy, like you just don't even feel like getting out of bed, well, that's kind of a suggestion that you've got a lot of the black goo in your body, and probably you have it also in your plasma template, because the black goo can be also only on the level of the light body, mostly in the etheric or the astral body structures. But it's usually going beyond that, and it's coming out of the plasma template, going to the light body. So here are a few symptoms, and now I would say that you need to have at least a few of them to actually be able to say that you're having this dark flower on a certain level, because for example, if your eyes are feeling dense and heavy, that's one of the symptoms. Well, it doesn't mean that you're having an affliction straight away, but it can be a sign that, for example, maybe the lotuses in your head need to be cleared. So I would say that there need to be like at least a few of these symptoms that I'm going to read. So how can I recognize I struggle with the dark flowering? You struggle to feel your lotuses and your plasma body during activations. So you don't necessarily have to feel your plasma body straight away. There are people that kind of hear that see or feel the energies better. Everyone kind of has that own feel to it. But if you feel like you're doing any kind of work with the plasma body and it feels like something is kind of infiltrating you from the inside, or you just feel very uncomfortable whenever you're working with the plasma body, that is definitely a suggestion that you're having the dark flowering effect. So this is what I mean by that. And if you ever work with your lotus anatomy, if you're already into these things and you feel like your lotuses are terribly heavy and compacted, that's a clue that for sure there's a lot of dark flowering in there. Another symptom, your eyes feel dense and heavy. And that is because of the compacted eye lotuses, because you have actually lotuses in your temples, in your eyes, and in your ears. And now, when they are getting kind of closed and covered with that black goo, it can also cause the difficulties with the vision. Another symptom is decrease in emotional and mental intelligence. So if you're struggling with this mind fog all the time, if you kind of feel numb all the time, like this feeling that people can sometimes say, like, I just really don't feel like being on this planet. I'm just feeling numb to other people's emotions. I don't even feel like being here anymore. Well, you've got a problem with yourself, and that is the dark flowering. Like, it's okay to sometimes get kind of like, just feel sick of this whole drama that is taking place here. I mean, this planet sucks sometimes, as I always say it, but it's about the general approach. If you have something like this all the time, if you struggle all the time, and also like you're not so sensitive to other people's emotions, and it doesn't mean that everyone has to be an empath, but again, it's kind of like about finding that place in between where you don't have to be able to tap into other people's emotions so much. But if you're not able to feel the emotions at all, or they kind of feel very vague to you, that's kind of suggesting that there is an issue with the dark flowering, because it's basically not allowing for these organic crystic plasmas to come to you. And then these organic crystic plasmas are going into your DNA template and kind of turning on all of these beautiful frequencies that we call the love, the grace, the kindness, all of those. And also the mental intelligence, if you suddenly have like this decrease where you have a very weak memory, you keep forgetting things, and all of your memories, it's also about the memories. If the memories feel very foggy, that's suggesting the dark flowering, because it's like the dark flowering starts to literally get into your internal memory matrix and kind of infiltrating it from the inside. So that's why the memories are disappearing. Another one, hearing voices, unfamiliar voices, having unfamiliar thoughts that don't belong to you. So if you're having this dark voice in your head, I'm not talking about this voice of wisdom that kind of tells you like you can do this, or maybe you should do this and this and this, and this kind of silent voice of your intuition that tells you what you're supposed to do or how you can make a certain outcome even better. I'm talking about this sad, low, depressive voice that is in the minds of some people that keeps telling you you're not worth it, you cannot do it, you don't deserve what you just received. Well, that is the voice of that twisted black goo consciousness that is on the inside of your plasma body. That twisted consciousness that is trying to take over you and take your body and the quantum of your soul. So if you're having these voices, these dark voices, that is suggesting an infiltrator that tries to make your frequency lower so that you completely feel like you're just closed in your own space. You cannot really do anything. You're actually starting to become dependent on that voice. And if it keeps going on for years, you might even develop a sort of an emotional interrelationship with that twisted consciousness. So that can actually become very, very frightening to a certain degree if you start to develop a bond with your own infiltrator. And that happens very, very often, because that's also related to the fact that, as I said, the dark flowering is going right also into the past lives. So if there's been some kind of an infiltrator that somehow got into your fields, if there's been any opening created through all sorts of rituals, it came in, and you've been carrying it for a few lifetimes, and all of these aspects of your personality that you can call your shadow body, your voice of darkness, that doesn't have to be you, and usually it's not even you. And like the biggest art in that whole thing is sometimes to be able to actually recognize that voice within you and be like, well, this is not even my voice. Like, I don't think like that. I don't have nasty thoughts like that, and I don't need to have them. And once you start resisting to that voice, you will be able to feel that something within you is starting to get really, really mad at you, that you're actually showing that resistance. So the first step, if you're having this impostor voice, this dark voice within you, is to actually recognize it and start putting a filter. What thoughts belong to me? What thoughts don't belong to me? And then you will be able to make a difference and start filtering out these thoughts that don't belong to you, and progressively start to push out that nasty infiltrator from your fields. And once you start to transform that on a mental level, you'll be able to do it on the emotional level, and then eventually got him out energetically out of your fields. But he needs to first lose the power, because if he's been in your fields for a couple of lifetimes, well, there's gonna be a problem here. So this is just for everyone's information if you're having something like this. I just feel like elaborating on all of these things because these symptoms are actually manifesting among many people, and some of them are not even quite aware of that. So it's important to speak about it. Okay. Next one. Let me see. Dark, heavy, and depressive thoughts, no vital force in the body. So this is a little bit related to what I just said. But in general, if you wake up and you're just really feeling no motivation to even do anything with yourself, and you're just like, you open your eyes and you literally get bombarded with this stream of these terribly depressive thoughts, that's not you. Because actually our souls, we often think that, like, from this 3D perspective, that our identities don't feel like being on this planet because it's been so long and we want to get out. And our souls also want to get out. But our souls at the same time understand that we are here still for a reason, and that we need to finish up some business before we get out of here. So your higher self identity will never bombard you with these dark, heavy thoughts. They are coming from somewhere. And this kind of heaviness in your mind, where you're kind of trying to get out, kind of just leave all that darkness behind you, but it's still there. Well, it's that voice at the back of your head, of that infiltrator that kind of tries to keep you all the time on the same frequency level. That's what they are doing. They are keeping you on the same level of frequency. All right, the next one is the weak communication between your mind, body, and the soul. And I don't really mean any kind of psychic skills here. I mean being able to tune in and feel what your body may need, like when it comes to the diet, when it comes to kind of feeling like, okay, I feel like going out and grounding today. Being in tune with what your mind, your body, and your soul need. What kind of energies do I need to bring to my field today? If there is chaos in you, and actually the dark flowering is the state of chaos in your body, the communication between your mind and your body and the soul, these three elements, it's getting very, very chaotic. And you might even be very, very much deceived. That's actually something that I forgot to mention when it comes to the Metatronic stuff. Because when it comes to the Metatronic stuff, if the Metatronic code reaches the level of the monadic reversals, which is like a 100% reversal of your DNA template, all of the codes are going on the opposite polarity and spins, that's when that distortion goes from your light body and it starts to infect your inner plasma templates. So it doesn't necessarily have to start in the plasma body. It can come from the light body to the plasma body as well if there's like a critical mass of the Metatronic code reached in the body. So if that happens and you're having a lot of angelic communications and angels speaking through you, well, you start to dark flower yourself with all of these light currents that are being sent your way even more, because as I said, this black goo is actually feeding itself with that light. Like if this is like a living Shalaya light, that's okay. But if you've been used to getting all of these Metatronic currents into you, this dark flower affliction is growing terribly fast. And that starts to become a huge problem. Also, if you have this voice which is kind of telling you to do this and this and this and this, there is a moment when you have to put a stop to that. And it's actually even more difficult for those who have been channeling and who've been deceived by these different angelic forces for a long time, because certain angelic forces want you to be dark flowered. So that because when you're dark flowered, it's much easier to control your mind. The level of the dark flowering in your body actually also decides how much your mind is controlled. And you could be surprised what kind of crazy situations might take place with a person who's having like a very high level of this dark flower affliction. Like these kind of situations where you're like kind of telling somebody that they did something that you didn't necessarily like, and they are like, but what are you talking about? I didn't do that. Well, and you think that they are lying. But what if I told you that sometimes they don't, that they actually don't remember that, because this dark flowering is just messing with their minds. So there are different situations. And the dark flowering is kind of opening our perspective also to how deep that infiltration can actually go and how strong certain souls are. Because I've been seeing different cases where if you're being controlled in over 70%, but you're still trying your best to stay on the best frequency possible and you're fighting against that infiltration, we are extremely strong. And if we managed to get this far with this level of all of these reversals, I mean, if we just had one show where I would tell you like, this is twisted, da, 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 on the planetary level, not even mentioning the personal level, we would all get terribly frightened. I mean, how come are we still alive? I mean, I would say that with me having different contacts with all of these races from all over the universe, the Christic races, the reason why they always admire us is the strength that we have. And the fact that with all of these reversals, we are still able to do amazing things. So just want to bring up that perspective, because this can be kind of like depressing to some of you how far things can go. But on the other hand, we've been in this mess for so long that now there is no way back. We can only do our best to get out of it. So let's go on with the other symptoms. That's another one. So your consciousness goes somewhere else during meditation very often. And I'm not talking about these moments when, for example, you're doing a technique and you just kind of fall asleep for a moment and then you're just feeling really good because you feel like the activation took place even though you fell asleep. That's when your body is getting just kind of like the capacity of your frequency holding is getting full, and then you kind of fall asleep because it's too much for the body to take more frequencies in. I'm talking about this type of meditations where you just close your eyes and then you're just like flying away to the void, and then you don't remember what happened, or you just get some holograms of speaking to some entities. Well, if you're having the dark flowering affliction, something can turn on and turn off your consciousness whenever they desire. And that's very often happening during the meditation. So if you just lose it when you're meditating very often, that's kind of a suggestion that there is something wrong because you don't exactly control where your consciousness is going. While this is what meditation is also supposed to teach you. What kind of, how you're supposed to direct your consciousness for a certain outcome, whether that's manifestation or some kind of healing. It doesn't matter. It's the art of being able to move your consciousness in a specific way in order to achieve a specific outcome. So that's something to be aware about. Another symptom are too impulsive behavior patterns. You feel like you don't control yourself. So when you have these moments, if you have these moments where you just feel like you're losing control over your own behaviors, and you're just like, well, I just don't know what came into me. Well, I guess some kind of a twisted consciousness, because it doesn't have to be you. It's again like with these thoughts. If you're having uncontrolled behaviors, that's suggesting the dark flowering affliction, because you're not able to control this, your own energy, right? So this is something that we can observe around the world, people kind of being driven around by their emotions and their behaviors. That's because that energy, that chaotic energy wants to get out, right? Another symptom are nightmares. Like if you're having these nightmares, these, I mean, they happen sometimes to each one of us, but I'm talking specifically about the nightmares that feel very heavy. So for example, I'm gonna speak about that more later, but basically if you're having a nightmare and you wake up with a headache, or with your body just being fully in pain, or if you feel like something is literally infiltrating you every single night, there is a certain opening. And the black goo can be actually very easily transmitted through the astral field because of all of these AI inserts in the astral field. So that's another one of the symptoms. It's difficult for you to be excited or joyful about things. So if you feel like you're not able to fully feel love or feel joy or feel grateful for something, well, that's because of these twisted currents running through your body that are also reversing these codes in your template that actually correspond directly to these frequencies that allow you to actually feel this, all of these emotions. That's actually what the plasma currents are about. The plasma currents carry all of these virtues, right? All of these attitudes and responsibilities of the spiritual mastery, the love, the joy, the gratitude, all of them are actually tangible frequency energy imprints. And the plasma currents carry the indelible encryption for them, the templates for being able to experience these feelings. While this nasty black goo, this dark flowering, is actually blocking the organic flow of these energies through our body. And the last symptom that I have on my list are the body pains, aches, and states of inflammation. So if you feel like your whole body, your whole physical body is just falling apart, that's because of the black goo that got directly from the plasma templates to the light body and also to the physical body anatomy. So good luck with that. It actually needs to be first healed from the plasma body level, then to the light body, and then to the physical body. Detoxing is not gonna help you get rid of the black goo because your system will get too weak and it's gonna come back anyway. So there needs to be also an energetic solution for it. So these are the main symptoms. You can analyze that for yourself if you're having the dark flowering or not. It's mostly about these things that I mentioned. Also, any kind of holographic insertions, any kind of visions or dreams that feel like illusions, they can be also projections coming from that twisted consciousness that is the black goo that is infiltrating or trying to infiltrate your plasma body. All right, what else? So the question arises, and there's been a couple of people actually asking me that. How is the dark flower spread? Is the dark flower spread by, somebody asked me, is the dark flower spread by the sexual interaction or just kissing? So I'm just gonna make that very clear. What are the main ways to catch that nasty dark flowering? So the sexual interactions, and actually they don't necessarily have to be on the physical level. We've got the astral realm, and there's a lot of interesting things taking place on the astral realm. So be careful what kind of imaginations you're having about other people, because they can actually be very tangible in other dimension, let's say. So that's why it's very important what kind of fantasies we are having in our minds, where we project our point of attention. Because what is not happening here, it doesn't mean that it's not going to happen on these other levels. So this is just for your own awareness. So I will start with the kissing, the act of kissing. What is actually that? The kissing is actually the exchange of your eternal ethers. So when you're kissing with somebody, you're exchanging your ethers with that person's ethers. So it's not going to spread the dark flowering to you, but it can spread other elemental distortions. So for example, if somebody is carrying, and I'm not talking about the physical stuff, I'm not a doctor, I'm just like a person who is into the energetic stuff. And obviously everything I have said so far, because I know that the black goo is a conspiracy theory, this is purely theoretical. I'm just talking about another story that I made up. And I know that you guys like to listen to my stories. Anyway. When two people are kissing, that's basically the exchange of the eternal ethers between the two of them. If somebody is having any kind of elemental distortions, they can be passed on to you. So it's more like about the light body distortions, emotional distortions as well, mental body distortions, but it's mostly on the external level, right? When it comes to the sexual interaction, that's when the dark flowering is spread in a very nasty way. Because actually, in organic circumstances, because I keep speaking about the dark flowering, but we actually also have something called the light flowering. And that's when your lotuses are fully bloomed, and they are having these beautiful streamers of frequency, and they are attracting beautiful energy currents into your body, and everything just feels and is crystal clear. And normally, during a sexual interaction, the lotuses of the plasma body are touching each other, and actually their petals are merging and the frequencies are being exchanged. So if two people are having an interaction and they are in the condition of the light flowering, they have beautiful plasma bodies, they can exchange beautiful plasma codes between each other. They can exchange even the plasma vapors, and the lotuses can bloom and become even bigger, and they can begin to spark. And there's like a beautiful energy exchange, right? So the lotuses are touching each other. But now think about it the other way around. So if the lotuses are infected, no matter whether the two individuals are infected or just one of them, let's consider that situation where one person is light flowering, the other one is dark flowering. So that person who is dark flowering will actually benefit from it because they will kind of clear a little bit of their distortions, because they will pass on a part of their dark flowering to the chakras, to the lotus chakras of that other person. So be careful who you are close with, because that's how you can catch the dark flowering in a very, very nasty way. And the truth is that as much as you can do all sorts of energetic protections, and they can work on the light body levels, with the plasma body it's a bit hectic, because these lotuses are directly merging. They are merging their energies. And it's as physical, it's as tangible as it is on the physical level. So it's like there could be like a really big mess in your plasma fields if you actually end up mixing your energies with somebody who's not having their plasma anatomy too clear. And then you have to struggle yourself in order to fix that. And that's actually what happened to many, I would say especially women, during the Atlantean times and the Draconian infiltration, and later on the Iani massacre, where that forced interbreeding between all of these, because it doesn't have to be just the humans, it can be also any kind of extraterrestrial races, the dark flowering started to spread, and it started to actually cause deviations from that organic christic factor. So this is the first way to get the dark flowering, not really through the kissing, but yeah, through the sexual interactions. And if it goes really far, it can also happen on the astral levels. But usually when it comes to the interactions on the astral field, it's usually more about you probably catching some kind of a distortion on the astral body, not really the plasma body. The second way through which you can catch the dark flowering, and that's why all of us have it, is because of the planetary grid distortions. So certain areas on the planet are having like a lot of the dark flowering, and that's mostly the Middle East. The Middle East is really very much dark flowered because of certain groups that are out there, and the opening of these hadal regions there. So it depends also where you are born originally, because if you are born in a place where there's a lot of the dark flower affliction, you may pick it up and carry it since birth, even if you didn't have much of it before. But sometimes you're also being born in a place where there's a lot of rainbow frequencies running around, and there isn't too much of this dark flowering. So it pretty much depends, but the planet is infected, so that's why we are also infected with it, right? So that's the reason why everyone has it, because the planet carries it in the grids. Another way to get the dark flowering is through demonic possessions, or the fatally or the black dragon infiltrations. The possessions cause the infection of the of the plasma template, even if that is a possession that is taking place on the light body level, it later on gets spread to the plasma template anyways. And if you're having a plasma demon that goes directly into your plasma body, well, that is automatically infecting you a lot, and then you have to get this out of your chakras. Another way are the horror movies. There's a lot of black goo going through the horror movies and through some kind of science fiction movies as well. All of those movies that we had with those children showing all of these black eyes, all of this scary stuff, that is carrying the subliminal messages, the programming that is later on through the artificial intelligence transferring the black goo into your fields. And especially if, of course, you're naturally feeling all of that fear, all of these emotions that you're sensing when you're watching the horror movies, you're picking up a lot of heaviness. And you can get all sorts of entities coming into your fields. So if you really, really want to watch a horror movie, I recommend that you better shield yourself and you shield the TV that you're watching it on, so that nothing comes into your house either. But in general, this spreads a lot of the distortions. And also all sorts of computer games that especially include any kind of monsters and stuff like that. That is also spreading the black goo to the young generation, and all of those in the folklore, these children with the black eyes, or with their one eye covered and the other with this black stuff, that is basically a programming that we receive, right? So it's already going into our subconscious that such infiltrations can take place, because that is the dark flowering infiltration. When it becomes an affliction and the being starts to infiltrate you, that's so much different than the light body. And that's something that may take you a while to actually clear out. Like when you're facing any kind of being coming into your light body. Geez, you just push it out of your fields and it's all right. But with the plasma body, it becomes a very complicated mechanics where you kind of have to prepare yourself for that final act of getting it out of your fields. But first you have to reclaim your mind and a part of your spirit and a part of your emotional body, and then you can start to get it out of yourself. So that's a really complicated process in itself. Another way, you can get it partially through the ancestral line. So those who are working with the Christic plasmas, you can obviously get them. You can obviously get to spread all of these Christic frequencies to your genetic line, and then they will be, let's say, getting better. Basically, once you start to work with the Christic plasmas, it's also affecting your ancestors, your family members, so they can also start to get these frequencies on the subharmonic level and also start their own process of healing. The same way is kind of with the dark flower. If you're interacting with a lot of people that have this dark flowering, there is a chance that these small parts of it can also get spread into your fields. If you had that experience, I've been hearing a lot of people telling me that, where they just talk to somebody and they just feel like they suddenly become very, very heavy, and they feel like something is literally coming into them, or something is being transmitted from that individual right into their fields, and they start to feel very heavy. That's actually like a very dark way to start infecting somebody else with the dark flowering. All right. We also have the unbalanced light body and external creation technologies. Because, as I said before, the reversal of the light body structure may result in progressive reversal and infiltration of the plasma body. People working with the Metatronic light body technologies are causing progressive Metatronic reversal of their DNA templates that can eventually begin to start infecting their core, or more like their inner layer. You cannot really go into the core, but you can start to infiltrate the inner layer. So any kind of angelic meditations that spread a lot of this artificial static light into your fields, that may be also the reason why the dark flowering may get worse. The next way to get the dark flowering, and that is of course very much theoretical, because obviously we don't even know if that's true. But I would say that's the vaccine. All sorts of vaccines can spread the dark flowering. And that involves the vaccine we got after 2020, but also any kind of vaccines for young children. They contain the nanoparticles that are like these mini versions of the black goo, theoretically. And that means that this can affect your templates, your core templates as well, because as I said, if it's in the external layers, after a while, it might also go into your inner layers. And the next thing is something that just kind of came in through the personal experience, where it's just like, I was once just a couple of years ago, just talking to a friend, and she was drinking one of these energy drinks. I don't even remember what's the name of that energy drink, and she's drinking that, and I'm looking, and there's suddenly this black goo being behind her, and he starts to merge into her fields, and her eyes started to change. That was so scary. So don't take any kind of energy drinks, because they even their names like Monster or Red Bull, the names speak for themselves. They are supposed to awaken the monster within you, which is this black goo twisted consciousness. So if you want to stay clear in your own energy, I would advise you not to take that. So these are the main ways through which the dark flower can be spread. And now we can avoid almost all of them, as you can see. So you don't have to vaccinate yourself, because that is a free will choice. Even that is always a free will choice. You don't have to drink any kind of poisoned energy drinks. You don't have to watch the horror movies. You don't have to do any kind of unbalanced light body activations. And you can choose who you're actually interacting with on a closer level. So the only way to get it in a really nasty way is through the planetary grid distortions and through the ancestral line. But that can be managed as well. When it comes to the planetary grids, it can bring certain levels of the dark flowering, but if you clear that on a regular basis, the planetary grids are not really a danger. So these are the main ways to get the dark flowering. And as you can see, a lot of them can be caused by the free will choices. Even though sometimes when you're having like really big levels of the dark flowering, you are naturally attracted to doing certain things. Oh, another one that I forgot to mention on my list, this black metal music. Oh my goodness, it's literally bringing demons to your field. Even if that's not bringing literally the dark flowering, it's bringing a lot of really, really, really bad beings, because actually the metal is the symphony of the phantom realities. So, so just be careful with this one. But if there is a certain attraction to all of these dark things, like the horror movies, the metal music, all of this dark stuff, there is an aspect of you that has a vibrational co-resonance with this. So that means that there is a certain aspect of yourself that you need to heal, and you will be more in harmony with yourself. If you feel like listening to metal music is a part of expressing yourself, well, you might end up feeling like you just need to express yourself in different ways, right? So these are the main ways to get it. And I'm probably going to divide this show into 2 parts because I'm already talking for so long and I've been only through like 6 questions so far, and I've got like about 12 more. So if anybody will have a question to me after this show, just feel free to write me a question either like in the YouTube comments or message me, and I will just write down more questions for the next time because I really feel like I need to cover this dark flower affliction in detail. So we know already how to recognize it in yourself and how is the dark flower spread. And now let's look at how can I recognize a dark flowered individual. So what kind of people you should be careful of in your everyday life. And that's gonna be based on their emotional, mental patterns, especially, and the way you sense their energy. And I would like to thank a friend of mine who's basically doing quite a lot of research on this dark flower affliction stuff. I really do appreciate his help with that because he's been analyzing all of these things also when it comes to the psychological processes. He knows about the dark flowering even more than I do, but I'm grateful for his help. This is actually also, these things that I listed are thanks to his help, so thank you so much. And let's get on to it. How can I recognize a dark flowered individual? So the first symptom is the more dense, darker color of the eyes and unpleasant feelings when you look this person straight in the eyes. So when you're looking somebody in the eyes and you're just feeling like this, like as if suddenly your heart stops and you're like, oh my God, right? I just want to run away. That's kind of a suggestion that this person is holding quite a lot of darkness and probably there is something else looking through their eyes. Another one, less sensitivity to emotions, sociopathy, Machiavellian personality, and lots of emotional mental manipulations. So, as I said, a dark flowering condition is a state of the twisted consciousness. So this person is not just going to tell you like, this person is not just going to attack you on the street and take the money away from you. That's what usually a person who is just under some kind of a spontaneous influence is doing. A person who is dark flowered will very slowly start to get to you, get your trust, and that's a part of the Vivi game that we'll see if I will have enough time to speak about today. This person will get to you very slowly. You will start to trust that individual, and in the moment when you trust that person enough, they will use that against you. So that's one of the traits, and the Machiavellian personality is basically the main motto of a Machiavellian individual is that the goal justifies the means. So they will be ready to do anything in order to achieve their goal. And they love to play with other people's emotions because they don't really have any kind of emotions on their own. So they are just trying to kind of catch up with trying to make others feel in a similar way that they do. And they are not sensitive to emotions. They are basically pretty much numb, right? Another trait is that they are running on an autopilot. So if there is somebody and you just kind of feel like they are just running some programs, not really thinking for themselves, as if even their answers kind of feel robotic to you, that's because the dark flowering is allowing for an easy access to the artificial intelligence. So people who are, I mean, each one of us is kind of connected a little bit, at least on a small level, to the artificial intelligence through all of these digital devices. However, when it comes to people who are very, very much kind of programmed, that's allowing for an easy access to the AI and then later spreading that dark flowering affliction. Another one is the narcissistic personality that feels superior to others, is very proud of themselves, egoistic, and selfish. So that's the typical image of a fatally being. And the person who is like having like a really big ego, they are having a lot of the dark flowering in themselves, because that dark flowering is giving them a twisted image of themselves. So if somebody's thinking like, well, I'm just the master of the world, that's because it's that twisted consciousness that wants to make them think that they are the masters of the world and they can do anything they want. So the further this dark flowering goes, the more severe it is actually becoming when it comes to all of these personality traits. They are becoming more and more in opposition to the moral values that we have as Christic people. An excessive desire to transmit something to others. And that may include some spiritual people doing healings, readings, and grid work. So to make that clear, what I mean by that, if like those certain people who are like, I will transmit these energies to that person, this desire, feeling to transmit energies, that's also to actually poison the environment. And people who are sometimes saying like, well, we are just doing this divine work and we are doing the divine work on the entire planet, they don't even realize that, you have to be clear in order to do the grid work. Like when I was thinking about like how do I want to proceed with my students, because I feel like as a group shield we have an amazing potential to also do some very useful grid work as a group collective. I thought to myself like, well, if we don't clear ourselves properly first, we are just gonna get this planet even into more trouble, or we are just gonna get very much targeted if we are not strong enough. So the thing with the dark flowering is that if you're doing a certain grid work, there is a chance that you may spread a part of your dark flowering into the planetary grids. And that's what some unexperienced grid workers are doing. When it comes to all sorts of spiritual readings that especially involve the use of tarot cards or some kind of external tools, there is a chance that if you allow for such reading to be done on you, this person could get into your fields and live, and unconsciously, usually it's unconsciously, it's not like there are just some people who are like, well, we are just gonna conquer the world by dark flowering it. No, it usually happens unconsciously, because the biggest mystery about the dark flowering is that the person is supposed to be kept in unawareness most of the time. So the infiltrator is just sitting quietly in somebody's plasma body, is dictating everything that this individual is supposed to do, and the individual thinks that they are just receiving their divine guidance, while in the meantime, they are doing a lot of work that is actually causing a lot of harm. So it's good to clear yourself first, heal yourself first, before you decide to assist others and the planet. So there are many wonderful people here in this realm who are doing beautiful work, but that's because they have done the healing on themselves first. And then they started spreading this healing to other people, teaching them how to heal themselves or assisting them with the process of the healing. But those who suddenly got awakened and decided they are just another savior of the planet, and they are just, from now on, they are just going on a trip and they are saving the grids, that sounds a little bit suspicious, at least to me. Another trait when it comes to recognizing a dark-flowered individual is the constant need to manipulate other people to put them in a certain way of consciousness. Controlling others is basically a very easy thing for them. So it's this constant need to be in control, right? And it's coming from that twisted overlord that is trying to control that individual that is in a state of consciousness where they don't really have a mind of their own. So that's kind of what starts to happen. Another trait is the stubbornness and more responsivity to someone else who is also with the dark flowering affliction. So it's again like the vibrational co-resonance between people. You might come across the entire group that is having a dark flower affliction problem, the entire spiritual community that doesn't even realize that it keeps attracting people with the same type of an infection. So this kind of vibrational co-resonance is also seen among the dark flowered individuals, and usually a dark flowered against the light flower individual, they are usually not getting along. And another one is reduced sensitivity to themselves and the environment. So it's the emotional, energetic, mental sensitivity that gets affected. So those people are not really sensitive when it comes to the needs of their bodies, of their minds, of their spirit. So these are the main traits when it comes to recognizing the dark-flowered individuals. Perhaps you've got some people like this in your environment, and it's nothing bad. Perhaps there is a certain work that you're simply supposed to facilitate for them. Okay, so now I received that question, and I think it's a good one to speak about. How many people on the planet have the dark flowering, and how many do not? Who are the people that do not have it, as in what they have done, or what is in them on any level that they haven't gotten it? So I pretty much wrote down like a paragraph, so I'm gonna read it first and then just get back to a few things that I want to add. Almost everyone on this planet these days holds a certain level of the dark flower affliction. Due to the infection of the planetary grids, the dark flowering effect started spreading like an epidemic. It may take us a while to be able to fully clear it on the entire planet. People who are the holders of the Nomi gene hold the power to transmute the dark flowering from their templates and start healing the grids too. Right now, all of us who express the free will to do so can connect with the Nomi seed and activate the Nomi code transfiguration factor in the epigenetic overlay, even if they don't have a Nomi gene directly in the DNA. The dark flowering started reaching its critical mass levels in the grids around 2016. That's when we had the trumpets, and later escalated due to the Black Dragon invasion in 2018. This is why the planet triggered the activation of the Nomiseed, which is the Earth's direct link to the eternal creation, and later accepted the eternal Crystal River failsafe host, which enabled the planet to become a trans-time station for all systems that lost their ascension potential but would like to get it back. So when it comes to the dark flower affliction, everyone has it, but there is a certain way to put a stop to it, and that is activation of the Nomi gene. And basically, the more of the Nomi gene you activate in your template, the more of the immunity you start to develop in your template. Because right now, I would say that each one of us is having like a part of the Nomi code activated. Some of us have more of it, some of us have less of it. I'm talking about the ones that started the activations. And the more you connect with the Nomi seed, which is what I'm doing with my students all the time, and I hope they aren't really bored with it when I say connect to the Nomi seed almost before every technique. But this is really, really important because we actually have to bring all of these Christic eternal currents into our body, because they stop all of these disharmonic imprints to get into our fields. So that's why basically activating this Nomi gene, even if you don't have it in your template, you can activate it in your epigenetic overlay. And that is through the journey to the rainbow reservoirs on the Araya Earth. So when it comes to that entire context of the Crystal River host, of the eternal host, we start to activate such a high potential, the Nomi gene, which has been a secret for a long time, because there has been very high levels of this affliction reached. And I remember myself that when I received quite of a heavy attack last December, when we were in that period of this crazy winter solstice with kind of trying to disconnect from our antiparticle selves, and I know that it's been quite of a heavy month for many people on an energetic level and also on the 3D level. What happened is that I tried to clear all of these black goo things that I saw in my fields from these elemental layers, but actually it felt like it wasn't quite working. And then I got into trying to remove all of those heavy stuff with the rainbow plasmas. And that's when it started finally working, when I started to feel the progress. So I felt like I needed to bring in more of the Christic frequencies that are actually holding the connection to the eternal creation. Because what is special about the rainbow plasmas, what makes the rainbow plasmas very, very special if you compare it to the other plasma currents, is that the rainbow plasmas are kind of like I would refer to as the transharmonic plasma frequency, which is actually between the internal and the eternal creation plane. So it's carrying the spectra of both. And this way you can already bring in this eternal, not just the internal, but also the eternal plasmas into your field. So that's what is stopping the dark flowering from getting worse. If you are at the stage where you just feel like there's a lot of this dark flowering, put a stop to it first. First stop it, and then try to kind of search for the ways to remove it. And probably about the solutions, I might speak about the solutions next week. I will just bring in, I would say, I will probably bring in like a short technique for everybody to connect with the Nomi seed, so that everyone can do it by themselves as well. there is one more thing that I would like to mention here, because as I said in the beginning, we had all of these statistics that if the dark flowering goes beyond the 30%, it can be managed, but it cannot be undone. Then if it goes beyond 70%, it's like you start to get that full infiltration, and then it's like it cannot be undone either, and the situation starts to get very difficult. You're getting a lot of that twisted consciousness in your body. So there is a solution for such cases right now, and I'm just going to read that paragraph first and then explain what it's actually about and how does that relate to the eternal host. So if a being or a system wants to complete the full ascension but suffer damage of their light body, which is the reversal of the light bodies on the phantom fall level, or they suffered a reversal of the plasma body, which is the gonfall level, they have to reincarnate or directly connect to a planet, a system, or a galaxy that is a part of the crystal river host. That gives them an access to a frequency hub that enables them to reverse all of the reversals and come back home as a fully ascended Christic being. So our planet is directly connected to Andromeda, which is, let's say, I would say like a local ascension station, right? And thanks to that, our planet is as well the noble planet that is holding the eternal crystal river host potential. And certain collectives, just like I was talking about that primordial spider coming back to the Nomicid imprint, or many of the reptilians are kind of interested in the host these days. What they have to do is that they have to either directly reincarnate in a system where the host is taking place. So we may experience that some of the souls that will be coming in might be actually the souls of the fallen angels, but they will really want the host, the bioregenesis, and then the host, so they can ascend and regenerate their templates. That's why we have like 900 more years for that, in order to actually be able to accept all those that want to come with us. Or just the direct connection is enough. So like there was this period of time before the split where I wouldn't be sleeping much because I would keep just building these passages and these bridges between the phantom systems to Earth, the crystal river bridges. Like I would say these were the passages that were enabling some of these beings, of course, not just kind of come and infiltrate our planet, but like for those that wanted the host, they were able to get the frequencies of the crystal river flowing right into them. And this was also allowing them to begin that process of the transformation. So, so that's why the passages, when it comes to all of these black hole systems that we are still having on this planet, we can think why they didn't get closed after the split and all of that. Well, that's because we are in the eternal crystal river host. And so this planet, Earth as a noble Nomicode planet, is actually and giving a chance to all of those beings that are still a part of the oneness, that are still a part of the host. They can take that chance and they can go with us and they can again become good, let's say. Become good, get back their original Christic imprints. So that's why this is progressing this way. So that's when it comes to that question. Everyone has this dark flowering, but there is a way to stop it now through activation of the Nomi gene. And then you progressively start to clear it from your fields. Okay, so I'm gonna get probably to one of the last questions, and then I'm going to finish with the rest next week, because there's still a lot to talk about this elemental twists. I think I will leave the elementals for the next week. Okay. So I received a question. If you've done a Metatronic activation or a meditation, does it automatically make you dark flowered? So here's my answer to that. A Metatronic activation shouldn't make you dark flowered, but it may spread some light body reversals into your field directly. So-called angelic meditations or third eye opening meditations, all of those activations that use the Metatronic geometry or a certain sort of a Metatronic technology. All of those meditations that we have been given by all sorts of channelers are aimed at twisting and reversing our light body structures. However, if the amount of the light body distortions reaches a critical mass level, they can cause the plasma body reversals too, such as the dark flowering, since the distortion... Oh, sorry, I missed that. I just had some kind of a weird interference on my back. Excuse me, I will just start again from the beginning of the sentence. I got so distracted. I think something just didn't like what I said before about the Nomicode. Okay. However, if the amount of the light body distortions reaches a critical mass level, they can cause the plasma body reversals too, such as the dark flowering, since the distortion will break through the barrier, separating the external and internal templates directly to the plasma internal template. So if you're holding a lot of light body reversals, without being even aware of that, a meditation like this can cause some problems also in the plasma body anatomy. So, that basically means that it's good to be careful with doing all sorts of light body activations because they can cause some problems in the plasma body. Like there are some people who are doing, let's say, the light body meditations that are utilizing the Christic frequencies, for example, working with the Veka codes. My viewpoint on that is that you can do it, and maybe it's not gonna reverse you. For some people, it's working, mostly because of the fact that they just kind of on a higher levels, they took that Nomicode, and if they don't hold so much of the dark flowering in themselves, it's not really gonna spread. But also if there's been a certain individual saying that he's been doing some kind of work with the Amoreya activations. I think it's the flame body or the crystal body. And he saw his lotuses being light flowering. Well, remember that you've got the lotus anatomy in your plasma body, but there is like an external version of it in the crystal body. So now the question is, what did you see with your inner vision? Was it the crystal body or was it the plasma body? Because there's a different way to actually view it. And if you've never been working with the plasma activations, you're just gonna see the crystal body. So there is a difference in that. And it's good to be aware of that. Okay. Let me see what else. So, I think that perhaps with that, maybe I'm going to finish. The questions that I'm gonna leave for next week include the dark flowering and the elemental distortions, how it's all related to the Vivi games, but I wanted to first speak about how actually the dark flowering is affecting all of us, how it's related to the psychology, the emotional responses. I think it's quite important to be aware of that and to kind of try to filter out certain personality traits that may not even be of us. And as I said, I'm open for any kind of questions. And also if you're thinking like, how do I remove that dark flowering? No worries, I'm gonna speak about it next week. And I feel like I will prepare just like a quick activation for everybody who can do it in order to connect to the NOMI seed. I'm pretty much doing that with my students, but I will kind of get like a short version for everyone so that everybody can do it, so that you can connect with the NOMI seed and start to clear your lotuses. And just a small announcement, I actually have 2 announcements. The first one is that I'm still recruiting for my new PLASMAREGENESIS group. So if anybody's interested in joining my classes, there are still a couple of spots left. I was guided to make this group a bit bigger, so even though I've got already over 20 people, there is a chance I will still accept a couple. So if you really want to join and if you want to learn how to remove this this nasty dark flowering stuff from your anatomy, this is also included in the classes. We're doing all sorts of fascinating stuff on the classes. I'm always enjoying my experience. So if you are interested in joining, feel free to contact me, and I will probably add you to the list as well. We are starting this Saturday, so if you want to join in last minute, feel free. And again, just like I said in the beginning, if you're watching this on Rumble, feel free to like, subscribe, and also thank you so much to the producer, Gus, who is always here for all of us, who actually created this platform and, you know, keeps bringing in people who speak their truth. And also thank you to lovely Vanessa, the moderator. I appreciate both of you and all of the wonderful hosts who are always sharing their truth on this platform. And for now, I wish you a wonderful week, and I cannot wait to see you next week and continue with this extremely fascinating topic. There will be probably more downloads coming in for me about the dark flowering, so that's why I feel like I'm strongly being guided to just kind of take it easy with this topic and just speak more about it next week, as I have a feeling there might be some interesting questions coming up from those who are watching me. So thank you so much for tuning in, and again, have a wonderful week and see you soon. Bye bye.